Hello, my name is Matt, but you may know me as the Tattoo Robot. Today, I've got another fantastic drawing tutorial for you. This is part of a series where I'll be illustrating 3 cocktails, each in a unique tattoo style. Traditional, neo-traditional, and my personal favorite, new school. So, sharpen those pencils, or charge up your Apple Pencil, and let's dive in. First things first, let's draw the base of our glass. A simple circle will do the trick. Now, some of you might be thinking, that's not a circle, it's an oval or an oblong. Well, you're wrong. It is a circle, it's just drawn in perspective. Now let's add the top of our glass and the sides. For this example, the top of the glass is the same size circle as the base, and 2 straight lines connect them to form a cylinder. If I erase this bottom line, it looks like a very basic non-transparent cup. But we're not stopping there. Let's push it further. If I add a half circle or even a full circle to the top to represent the lip of the cup, then add an inner circle near the bottom and connect them at the edges, we've got an interior of the glass. Now it's starting to look like something a basic cocktail might be served in. But wait, it's empty. Oh no. Time to fill it up. Another circle will represent the surface of our beverage. Let's add some ice. To draw an ice cube, I'll start with 3 simple square shapes, then I'll refine them just a little bit by rounding out the edges. But you don't have to do it this way. For a traditional tattoo style, I might keep those edges sharp and clean. Now, let's add a bunch of these cubes to the glass, erasing where they overlap, since we're not worrying about transparency right now. Let's pretend this is the glass I'll use for my project. So, I'll add some line work and maybe a straw. How do you draw a straw, you ask? Same as before. Start with a cylinder, but use smaller circles and space them farther apart. Alright, now that we know how to draw a glass, let's try out some other types of glassware using the same method. But first, I'll add a handle to this example to turn it into a mug. To do that, I'll just draw another cylinder, but this time I'm adding a couple of bends to give it that classic handle shape. Here are 3 quick examples. For champagne flute, I'll start with a circle as the base, adding a thin cylinder for the stem, then placing another circle at the top. I'll connect the top to the stem with curves that are straighter near the top, that taper down and round out at the bottom. For a hurricane glass, it's the same concept as the champagne flute, but this time the stem is made up of multiple circles at different angles to give it that unique shape. Finally, a pint glass has gentle curves that taper slightly at the center. Now that we've got all this practice under our belts, let's move on to the full project. For this traditional cocktail drawing, I'm going to change the way I construct the glass. Traditional tattoos don't rely too much on depth or perspective, so I'm treating this more as a flat 2D image than something in 3D where you can actually see all the circles that are going into this. When constructing a piece of artwork, try to break it down into simple shapes. For my sketch here, I'm roughing in the shapes using rectangles based on a jar for reference. Once I'm happy with the overall shape, I'll add the handle, starting with another rectangle to get the size approximately right, and then refine it from there. If I were working at a different angle, I might use circles to establish all my shapes before refining further. It's important to get your base shapes down before diving into details. Not that this drawing is going to be all that detailed. That's not a bad looking jar. But I don't want this artwork to look boring, so I'm going to add a little lemon for garnish. Remember all those circles we practiced? Let's bring those back. For the lemon slice, I'm going to make 3 circles. One for the rind, the outer peel, one for the pith, the white inner layer, and one for the fruit. Then I'll split the fruit circle into segments, adding little curves to each segment to represent those juicy sections. And now let's add a flower. Pretty much the same as the lemon, but adding a little bump in the center of the petals and erasing the outermost circle. We'll add a couple of leaves and we've got ourselves a simple little flower to add a little bit more color to this piece. Now onto the beverage itself. We could do some ice cubes as I demonstrated in the basic section of the video, or maybe we could do an oceanic landscape. Maybe even a skull, who knows? I started this project when I was in South Carolina, so I decided to add a palm tree and a crescent moon as a tribute to their flag. But this is your artwork. You don't need to follow along with exactly what I'm doing. Bring in your own inspiration. Make it more you. Being a tattoo artist, I often ask my client for additional details about them so that I can incorporate that into the tattoo and make it more special. I had to move some elements around to make it all work, but now I'm happy with my sketch. Everything is presented clearly, and I've left enough space between these bold lines I'm about to add to squeeze in some color. Now, let's dive into the line work. I'm using a bold black line with a slight bleed, so it gives it the effect that it was done with a marker. Of course, what you use is up to you, but I like to make traditional artwork feel a little bit more rustic. Now that we've finished our line work, it's time to double check all the lines are touching. This is especially important to you Procreate users as it allows you to easily drag and drop colors. The same applies to Photoshop and the Paint Bucket tool. Coloring a traditional piece should be pretty straightforward, but artists are taught differently depending on where they're from and who's doing the teaching. When I first started tattooing, traditional tattoos weren't given the same respect that they receive today. They were seen as simple and underdeveloped, but then a resurgence happened, and suddenly the tradition was given back its rightful place in the name. It's where American tattooing began, and many artists wanted to get back to those roots. So I will share a little bit of how I learned, but just know that other artists may favor different methods. When I think of traditional tattooing, I think of a limited color palette. This stems from what was available back in the early days of tattooing. Colors were bold, basic, and practical. Mint, for example, wasn't an option back then, so it's best to avoid it if you're trying to stay true to that traditional style. There are a few approaches I use when coloring this type of artwork. One is edge to edge, ensuring everything is fully saturated for a bold, consistent look. Another is creating a gradient. This could transition from black to color, black to skin, black to color to skin, or just color out to skin, or in this instance, blank canvas. The gradient doesn't need to be smooth, it can appear peppery if that's the look you prefer. For this piece, I think a red background will nicely complement the yellow lemon and the blue flower. The bold contrast between these primary colors will help the design pop and give it that classic traditional tattoo feel. Some artists believe it's against the rules to use white in American traditional tattoos. But if a highlight improves the design, I'm all for breaking the rules. After all, it's art. Pushing boundaries is what makes it exciting. And there you have it, a traditional style Sweet Tea Mule. As luck would have it, I have all the supplies to make one of these at home, so I think that's what I'll enjoy tonight while I prepare the next video in this series, the Neo-Traditional Cocktail. I've got so many more drawing tutorials planned, each diving into the triple tattooing styles, so stay tuned for those. Did you follow along with my tutorial? If so, how did you change the artwork to make it your own? I'm on Instagram at TattooRobot. Tag me in your drawings. I'd love to see what you've created.